The Terminator franchise has a minimal set of characters, considering that most of the stories revolve only around the Connor family. Some of the only exciting developments and additions have been the Terminators and how much they have adapted. But back in the 90s, people worked on the franchise and managed to explore many exciting aspects of the story through comic books. These comic books kept a continuity to the movies and valued intellectual property while focusing on the dilemma and seriousness of the situations. Today, we will look at one rather interesting character from the comic books, which turned out to be a major enemy. Let's check on who Karyn Stern is. Is she just another T-1000, or could she have been a lot more than that? Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Karyn Stern, the enemy within. Now, we might have witnessed a wide variety of Terminators over the years with intentions of killing the humans who had some role in the Resistance in the future or the Connor family. But we can't help but wonder about the number of Terminators that Sarah Connor has faced in her lifetime, with each one having better features than the previous one, and Sarah still managed to defeat it somehow. She was put into an asylum because people thought she was crazy, and Sarah could have sat back and waited for her death with no one to believe her. Still, Sarah knew the future that her son would fight for, and she had to prepare him and make sure he tried to plant the seeds of the Resistance. But Skynet was not taking this threat lightly and continued to send back some of their most innovative creations as killer robots. While we have seen the most dangerous ones in the movie so far, the one who managed to get close to killing Sarah Connor and her attempts at preventing Cyberdyne's work was Karyn Stern. Now, Karyn Stern was a double threat in a way that none of the other characters ended up being in the franchise as far as the general arcs of the characters in this franchise go. Dr. Karyn Stern was a special agent for the Federal Bureau of Investigation and worked for Network Developments, where she held the Special Operations Executive title. She wanted to take over Dr. Miles Dyson's work after his death following the events of Terminator Judgment Day, but fate would have things set in a different path for her. Karyn Stern was introduced in the 4-part comic book series Terminator 2 Judgment Day Cybernetic Dawn, which was set right after the 1991 James Cameron film events. We are put right where we left off as Sarah and John flee the city in a car and head towards Enrique Salceda's desert stronghold. We are later introduced to the steel mill crime scene as LAPD detectives Weatherby and Mossberg arrive there for their investigations. These are the same detectives seen in the movie interrogating Sarah at the Pesadero State Hospital. Karyn also comes to the scene and is one of the vital investigative officers as she reports back to her base. The exciting detail disclosed here is that Karyn is part of the Simi Valley Project, which is connected to the FBI, Network Developments, and even Senate members. The project focuses on some Terminator remains discovered over the years due to Skynet's various attempts at time travel experiments during the development of the time displacement equipment. Stern had been closely monitoring the work of Miles Dyson over the years, and she was ready to go to any level to understand the level of progress that he had made with his work at Cyberdyne. However, the events of the steel mill put a significant halt on all this as Dyson got killed, and a lot of the work at Cyberdyne was damaged. But Stern was dedicated to her cause, and she knew that she could carry the weight after the massive blow that Cyberdyne had faced and carry the project forward in Miles' absence. Stern took sole responsibility for continuing the project. She even decided to get information out of Miles' widow to get hold of as much intellectual property as she could. But the biggest priority to her amongst all this was finding out Sarah Connor, as it intrigued her how a woman who had been held in an asylum all this time could become one of the most eventful people in the past few hours, with a lot of havoc taking place throughout the process. During her investigation, she would end up at the Wilmington steel mill. Still, she didn't know that 3 Terminators had already been sent back in time to continue Cyberdyne's work and prevent any attempt at stopping it. 2 of the 3 Terminators sent were T-800, while the other was a T-1000. Thus, it could take the form of any person it wanted and sneak into places otherwise impossible. Stern was investigating independently at the Wilmington steel mill when the T-1000 managed to kill her and take her form. Thus, the Terminator was in the perfect position to prevent anything from happening to Cyberdyne. Yes, Stern became the ticket for the Terminator to complete its objective, and no one can deny that she did an adequate job in pretending to work, as no one could guess that she was a Terminator for a long time. While the Ter was the Terminator's objective, the T-800 decided to hunt for John and Sarah Connor, which made sense considering Dr. Karyn Stern was now playing their part and had halfway fulfilled the objective. Luckily, Sarah Connor was still in an active space as she was on a rescue mission to to get hold of Miles' family, but she was only intervened by one of the T-800s. But Sarah had an experience with these and managed to kill it quickly rather than spending hours like the last time she had to. John managed to get hold of the T-800's chip like they had to do with Arnie's T-800 in the movie so that he could be reset. But here he did it so Cyberdyne wouldn't get hold of it, and it would boost their work in launching Skynet. Now, the T-1000 was hard at work as it went through Karyn Stern's work and gained much information regarding its history. Meanwhile, the agents at work were continuously reported to her because of Stern's position in the mission to acquire any of the Terminator bodies. Even though Miles' work had been destroyed and his widow managed to keep the information to herself, something had been at work and enabled the Skynet's existence, thus causing the Terminators to arrive back in time. John does state an essential line here, as he mentions that the Terminators are coming from a possible future, which means they change every second because of minute changes being made in the present. When Sarah is clueless about the source or reason for Skynet's survival, Mossberg, who had seen Sarah kill the T-800 and believed her, tells her about the Simi Valley Network Development's feds. So Sarah decides to take matters into her own hands and head over there, where Dr. Karyn Stern welcomes her. Stern discovered that John was on a different path from Miles' kids and sent the other T-800 to intervene. Connor had interacted with quite a few killer robots and other kinds of robots by now, and that's why she started suspecting Karyn the first time she met her while being interrogated. Sarah asks them all for the information regarding their work and what they know is a deal where she would keep Miles' wife, Teresa, from revealing to the world about the Terminators and everything else that Karyn's organization had been working on secretly. Karyn's associate, Spassky, freaks out at her, but Karyn, the sly T-1000, keeps her calm and decides to show Sarah around instead of continuing to interrogate her. In the heavy and shocking exposition that follows, we find that Skynet had been working on their time displacement equipment for quite a while now, as the first of the Terminators was found back in the 70s in Argentina. Karyn stated that these must be guinea pigs to test the time travel technology because none of the 27 that had been sent so far had survived the journey. It isn't clear whether this is Karyn or the T-1000 talking, but it is an exciting plot point. So even Skynet wasn't perfect in their creation and had to go through many failures, like Thomas Alva Edison, to perfect the time machine mechanism. By the way, Edison was not a very cool guy. You wish you had the time machine to go and see if he was the person who invented the electric bulb. Anyway, we also find that more of these Terminators were sent back in time and are now in the possession of other countries, such as Japan and France. While they think that Skynet has been sending these Terminators as guinea pigs for the testing of their time displacement equipment, Sarah realizes that the original intention was to make network developments learn about these developments, thus ensuring that Skynet remains in the possible future. Sarah demands that they destroy all these to prevent Skynet's existence, and right then, Karyn reveals herself to be the T-1000 by taking on Sarah's form. Yeah, that's probably the craziest cliffhanger ever. Imagine the possibilities of the story if Sarah is a Terminator herself, or if Sarah gets to kill the T-1000, even though the last time she had the help of a fellow Terminator gone good. Final Showdown. The follow-up to this 4-part comic book series was the No Fate storyline in the Terminator Nuclear Twilight / Cybernetic Dawn comic book. This comic book featured 2 storylines. Sarah had a face-off with the T-1000 at the network developments, and John Connor fought against a Terminator in the distant future in the other storyline. Sarah faces several attacks from the polyalloy T-1000, reminding her of the events when she had to face off against the same robot in the Judgment Day storyline. The T-1000 manages to kill any of these people who arrive on the scene to stop it and continues to follow Sarah. Luckily, Sarah barges into the chem analysis lab where she ends up flinging one of the chemicals there, a bottle labeled 27B/6, at the Terminator, and it causes some damage as it freezes the upper layers of the polyalloy body. Sarah used the observations to find more chemical substances and pour them onto her. As it lashes out while dying, the entire facility explodes, destroying the years of research. Sarah manages to escape, leaving one of the major hopes of Skynet's existence behind her. Thus, it ends the story of Karyn Stern, or what one might call the T-1000, who was keeping Skynet in the possible future because Karyn Stern died way back. We might wonder what would have happened if Stern had been alive. Would she have believed Sarah and become a vital part of the resistance? She could have also helped destroy the other Terminators acquired by the different countries, thus killing any hope for Skynet. Getting hold of someone like Karyn was one of the most genius moves made by the Terminator, and it means that they are not as stupid as they seem and might just be among Sarah's friends, least expected. Marvelous verdict. Yes, that was the story of one of the most remarkable characters in the Terminator universe. A character that could have been a part of the movies and proved to be an essential part of the arc of the development of Skynet. But then, too many Terminators appeared simultaneously and weren't seen in the movies for a long time. This comic book arc is one of the most incredible stories we have seen in the Terminator universe and is way better than half the movies the franchise has had over the years. Even though one might argue that this time around, killing the T-1000 was too easy for Sarah, the chemical label 27B/6 was a reference to the 1985 Tim Burton movie Terry Gilliam, and that detail might just shut the nerds up for a while. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.